In 1908, the skies over Siberia split open with a blinding flash that turned night into day. A shockwave ripped across the land, flattening 80 million trees in seconds. For more than a century, the mystery of the Tunguska explosion haunted scientists and defied logic. Now, artificial intelligence has uncovered the truth, and what it found lurking behind that explosion is far more terrifying than anyone was prepared to face. The morning the sky exploded. It was an ordinary summer morning in Siberia on June 30th, 1908. The sun had just begun to rise above the endless green forest near the Podkamennaya Tunguska River. The world seemed quiet, peaceful, and far away from the noise of cities. The people who lived in this remote part of Russia were just starting their day, unaware that within minutes, the sky above them would change forever. At around 7:14 in the morning, something strange appeared in the heavens. A blazing ball of fire, brighter than the sun itself, tore across the blue sky. It moved fast, leaving behind a glowing trail that painted the air with white and blue light. Birds scattered in fear. Dogs howled. For a few seconds, everything went silent, as if the earth itself was holding its breath. Then came the sound, a thunder so loud it echoed across the land. The ground shook violently as though a giant had struck the earth with a hammer. In an instant, the quiet taiga turned into chaos. The explosion that followed was so powerful that it flattened more than 80 million trees over an area larger than 2,000 square kilometers. The force could be felt hundreds of kilometers away. People were thrown to the ground by the shockwave. Windows shattered in faraway villages. The bright flash blinded those who looked directly at it, and within seconds, a fiery wind swept through the forest, setting parts of it ablaze. Yet when the echoes faded, an eerie silence returned. The once thick and green forest was now a graveyard of fallen trees. Everything pointed outward from a single point, as if something had exploded in the air above them. Smoke rose in twisting columns, and a faint smell of burning wood filled the air. But what puzzled everyone was that there was no sign of what caused it. Nothing visible that could explain the destruction. Seismic stations across Russia recorded the tremor, and it was powerful enough to circle the globe twice. Scientists in Europe noted unusual air pressure readings. People in cities thousands of kilometers away saw the night sky glowing for days afterwards, almost as bright as daylight. The world had never seen anything like it before, and the cause of this mysterious explosion became one of the greatest puzzles in modern history. In the years that followed, rumors spread quickly. Some said it was a meteor. Others whispered about the wrath of the gods. A few even believed it was a secret weapon, but no one truly knew what had fallen from the sky that morning. All that remained was destruction and confusion. The Siberian wilderness had swallowed the evidence whole. The Tunguska event, as it would later be called, became a silent legend buried deep within the frozen heart of Siberia. And yet, this was only the beginning. The true story of what happened that morning would only start to unfold through the eyes of those who saw it with their own eyes. What did the witnesses really see when the sky split open? Let's reveal their haunting accounts. Witnesses of the fire from the sky. The morning began like any other in the village of Vanavara. Traders and hunters were having breakfast. Smoke from wooden chimneys rose gently into the clear sky, and the forest was alive with the sound of birds. Suddenly, the calm was broken by a light so bright that it turned the dawn into day. It came from the north, growing larger and bluer until it filled the entire horizon. People stopped in their tracks, frozen by what they saw. A man named Semyon was sitting outside his small wooden house facing the forest when he noticed the sky glowing. He later recalled that the heavens seemed to split open, revealing a fire that burned high and wide. It was so bright that he could see every branch, every shadow, every leaf trembling. The heat became unbearable. He felt as if his shirt had caught fire. Before he could react, a massive explosion threw him several meters into the air. When he woke up, his wife was pulling him toward the house, terrified that the world was ending. All across the region, similar stories were told. Hunters deep in the forest felt the ground shudder beneath their feet. Some thought the sun had exploded. Others believed a mountain had erupted. The light was followed by a shockwave so violent that it flattened tents, knocked people down, and shattered windows as far as 600 kilometers away. Cattle were hurled to the ground. Horses bolted in fear. The air was filled with a roaring sound as if 1,000 cannons had fired at once. People who were closest to the explosion saw trees burst into flames, their bark stripped clean by the heat. The air turned hot and thick, carrying the scent of ash and resin. Even those who survived felt their skin burn and their ears ring for hours. The event was so sudden that many thought it was the end of the world. For several minutes after the blast, the ground continued to tremble and stones rolled down from nearby hills. When the rumbling finally stopped, silence took over again, heavy, haunting, and endless. When the villagers stepped outside, they saw a strange glow lingering on the horizon. A wide column of smoke and dust rose into the sky like a giant tree trunk reaching upward. But what confused everyone was the direction of the destruction. Everything had fallen outward from a single point, as if something had exploded in midair. For those who saw it, the memory never faded. They described it not as a falling star, but as a fire from the sky. It came without warning, without mercy, and disappeared as mysteriously as it had arrived. But this was only the human side of the story. Beyond Siberia, the world's instruments had also felt its shock. The Earth itself had recorded its echo, and those records would soon reveal that this was no ordinary explosion. Something far greater had shaken the planet that day, and the signs of it were being found half a world away. Global ripples of an unknown force. In the days that followed, reports came from every corner of the world. In England and Scotland, people noticed that the night sky was glowing. It was so bright that they could read books outside at midnight. In Germany and Denmark, sailors saw pale silver clouds glowing above the horizon. Even in faraway Washington, strange ripples in air pressure were recorded. It was as if a piece of the sky itself had exploded, and its echo had spread across continents. No one could connect the strange lights in Europe to a mysterious explosion in Siberia, because the event had happened in one of the most remote places on Earth. The Tunguska region was almost untouched by civilization. There were no telegraphs, no roads, and no quick way to share news. Weeks passed before any word reached scientists in Moscow. When they finally heard of the destruction, it was already too late to study the event directly. The forest had been burned and cooled, and the story became a mystery carried only by rumors and frightened villagers. For almost 20 years, no one dared to enter that lonely Siberian forest to search for answers. The land remained silent, its trees lying like fallen soldiers in perfect patterns. But time does not erase curiosity. Eventually, a small group of explorers decided to go where no one else had gone before, deep into the heart of the blast zone. They carried maps, cameras, and courage, but what they found would only deepen the mystery. Let's reveal what those first expeditions discovered hidden beneath the ashes of the Tunguska forest. The first expeditions into the Forbidden Forest. In the 1920s, a Russian scientist named Leonid Kulik convinced the government to fund an expedition to find the truth. He believed the Tunguska explosion had been caused by a giant meteorite, and he wanted to recover pieces of it. Kulik was brave, determined, and fascinated by the unknown. He gathered a small team of explorers and set out across the frozen wilderness of Siberia, guided only by old maps and the stories of local hunters. The journey was brutal. They crossed icy rivers, dense forests, and endless swamps. The land was harsh and silent. For weeks, they saw no sign of people. Finally, they reached the region near the Podkamennaya Tunguska River, where villagers said the sky had burned years ago. What they found was unlike anything they had ever seen. The forest was still scarred. Thousands upon thousands of trees lay on the ground, all pointing away from a single central point. The pattern was so vast that it could only be fully seen from the air. To the team, it looked like a giant butterfly burned into the heart of the taiga. But what shocked Kulik most was what he did not find. At the center of the destruction, there was no crater. The trees closest to the center were not uprooted, but still standing straight, stripped bare of branches and bark, as if frozen in place by a blast from above. The ground was blackened and littered with fallen trunks, but no hole, no giant stone, no sign of a meteorite was anywhere to be seen. Kulik and his men searched the area for days, digging and testing the soil. They found nothing. The expedition members began to wonder if the meteorite had exploded in the air before hitting the ground. The idea seemed strange, but it could explain the missing crater. They also discovered that the explosion's shape covered an enormous area, about 70 kilometers wide and 50 kilometers long. This butterfly zone showed where the blast wave had struck hardest. Near the center, the trees had been burned by intense heat. Farther out, they had been flattened by a powerful shockwave. Beyond that, the forest was untouched, standing green and quiet, as if nothing had happened. When Kulik returned from his journey, he brought back photographs and samples that fascinated scientists worldwide. The evidence showed that something extraordinary had taken place, but its cause was still uncertain. Years later, more expeditions came. They searched the swampy craters and muddy bogs that dotted the region. In one of them, explorers dug deep, believing they had found a hidden impact site. But at the bottom, they discovered not rock or metal, but the stump of an old tree, perfectly preserved. Whatever had caused the explosion, it had not come from below. When scientists began searching deeper into the very Earth itself, for microscopic, they found clues that might explain the mystery of Tunguska. The search for evidence beneath the ashes. In the 1950s and 1960s, scientists began collecting samples of soil, ash, and even tree resin from the area. They wanted to know if any traces of space material remained. Deep within the sticky sap of fallen trees, they discovered something remarkable: tiny metallic spheres that were invisible to the naked eye. Under the microscope, these particles gleamed like silver dust. Chemical testing showed that they contained high levels of nickel and iron, elements commonly found in meteorites but rare in the local soil. It was the first solid clue that something from space had indeed entered Earth's atmosphere that day. Further studies showed that the spheres were scattered evenly across the blast zone, suggesting they had rained down from above rather than from an explosion on the ground. This supported the idea of a massive airburst, a space rock that exploded in the atmosphere before hitting the surface. The heat and pressure from such an event would have been enough to vaporize most of the object, turning it into microscopic dust that drifted down over the forest. Scientists also noticed something else strange. The rings in surviving trees near the blast site showed signs of rapid growth in the years following the explosion. It was as if the nutrients in the soil had been altered by the heat and shock of the blast. Radioactivity tests were conducted, but no unusual radiation levels were found. The explosion had been natural, not nuclear. Still, its force remained one of the greatest ever measured on Earth. By studying the distribution of fallen trees, researchers calculated that the explosion had released energy equal to at least 10 to 15 megatons of TNT. To put that in perspective, it was about 1,000 times more powerful than the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima. The only possible source of such power from nature was a high-speed asteroid or comet bursting apart in the atmosphere at an altitude of around 8 kilometers. But even that explanation had problems. There were no large fragments, no remains of an object, and no crater. The more scientists found, the more puzzling it became. They searched nearby lakes, hoping to find pieces of the meteor at the bottom, but every attempt led to disappointment. One team believed Lake Checo, located about 8 kilometers from the center, might be the impact crater. Sediment studies later showed it was much older than the explosion. Another theory suggested that the object was made mostly of ice, like a comet, and had vaporized completely before reaching the ground. Decade after decade, the Tunguska site continued to guard its secret. Each expedition added a new piece of evidence, but never the full answer. The truth seemed to shift with every new discovery. Some scientists even wondered if the explosion had been caused by something entirely unknown to science, a new kind of cosmic event. As the 20th century neared its end, technology began to change. Computers could now model complex events, and satellite imagery allowed scientists to study the terrain in detail. The stage was set for a new generation of researchers to challenge the old mysteries. But with every new discovery came new theories, some scientific, others strange and unbelievable. Let's uncover the most controversial explanations ever proposed for the Tunguska explosion, theories that blurred the line between science and imagination, theories, speculations, and controversy. As scientists searched for answers, the Tunguska mystery began to attract minds from every corner of the world. Each decade brought new theories, each trying to explain what had happened on that summer morning in 1908. The asteroid theory was the strongest. Researchers believed a stony asteroid, perhaps 60 meters wide, had entered the atmosphere at 20 kilometers per second. The intense pressure and friction caused it to disintegrate 8 kilometers above the ground, releasing energy equal to millions of tons of TNT. The explosion flattened forests, produced a shockwave that circled the planet, and scattered microscopic fragments across the taiga. This theory explained the pattern of destruction and the metallic particles found in the soil, but it still left one question unanswered. Why had no solid debris ever been discovered? Some scientists argued that it was not an asteroid, but a comet. Comets are made mostly of ice and dust, and a body composed largely of ice could have vaporized completely before reaching the ground. That would explain the lack of fragments and the bright nights that followed the explosion, caused by fine ice crystals in the atmosphere reflecting sunlight. However, others pointed out that comet explosions do not usually produce such intense heat or localized shock waves. The comet idea solved one mystery but created others. Then came the more unusual theories. A few researchers suggested that a small piece of antimatter might have collided with the Earth, annihilating itself upon contact with the atmosphere. Others imagined a burst of natural gas igniting beneath the ground, though no geological evidence supported it. There were even claims of a black hole passing through the planet, entering over Siberia and exiting somewhere in the North Atlantic. None of these ideas stood up to close examination, yet they added to the legend. The most sensational claim of all was that the Tunguska explosion was caused by an alien spacecraft that malfunctioned or deliberately destroyed itself. This idea first appeared in the 1940s and quickly spread through popular culture. The remote location, the lack of crater, and the immense power of the explosion seemed to feed imaginations. Newspapers and magazines began calling it Earth's first recorded UFO crash. Serious scientists dismissed the idea, but the public fascination never completely faded. For more than a century, the debate continued. Each theory explained some aspects of the event, but left others unanswered. Was the object made of rock, ice, or something else entirely? How could such energy be released with so little evidence left behind? Every expedition brought more data, but the puzzle pieces never quite fit. It became one of science's greatest unsolved mysteries, a riddle frozen in the Siberian wilderness. As technology advanced, the focus began to shift from speculation to simulation. Scientists realized that with powerful computers, they could recreate the Tunguska event virtually. They could test every theory and compare results with real evidence from the site. And now, for the first time in history, the mystery was placed not in the hands of explorers or dreamers, but in the circuits of artificial intelligence. A century after the explosion, machines would take over the investigation, and what they uncovered was more terrifying than anyone had imagined. Let's tell you how artificial intelligence finally solved the mystery of Tunguska and why the truth it discovered changed everything we thought we knew about Earth's safety. AI finally solving the mystery. More than 100 years after the Tunguska explosion, the mystery still stood like a wall between science and truth. Modern researchers fed thousands of pieces of evidence into advanced AI systems, photographs from early expeditions, maps showing how trees had fallen, seismic records from 1908, atmospheric readings, and even microscopic chemical analyses from the soil. For the first time, every known clue was placed in one vast digital model. The AI analyzed patterns the human eye could not see. It compared them to millions of simulations of asteroid and comet impacts. What it discovered changed everything. The system revealed that the Tunguska explosion matched perfectly with a stony asteroid roughly 70 meters in diameter, traveling at a speed of 27 kilometers per second. It entered the Earth's atmosphere at a shallow angle and exploded about 8 kilometers above the surface. The detonation released energy equal to nearly 20 million tons of TNT, more powerful than any weapon humans had ever created. The AI reconstructed the shockwave, showing precisely how it had radiated outward and flattened the forest in a butterfly shape. It also explained why the trees directly beneath the blast had remained upright. They had been shielded by the downward pressure of the explosion that pushed the blast energy outward instead of straight down. The AI then examined why no crater had ever been found. Its model revealed that the object had completely disintegrated in mid-air, leaving only dust and microscopic metal fragments to drift down over the landscape. The extreme heat had vaporized the asteroid's core long before it reached the ground. The AI even predicted where small pieces of surviving debris could have landed, deep beneath the permafrost, miles away from the known epicenter, buried beyond human reach. It also confirmed that the glowing night skies seen across Europe were caused by fine particles from the explosion, scattering sunlight high in the atmosphere. But the most chilling part of the AI's analysis was its conclusion about what could have happened if the same explosion had occurred over a city. The model simulated modern urban areas under the same conditions, and the results were horrifying. Entire city centers would have been obliterated. Millions of people would have died in seconds. The heat would have ignited everything within 20 kilometers, and the shockwave would have shattered buildings far beyond that. Tunguska, it seemed, had been a stroke of luck, a warning that struck an empty forest instead of humanity itself. The AI also revealed a sobering truth about the future. Events like Tunguska are not rare. Asteroids of similar size enter Earth's orbit every few hundred years, and most go unnoticed. The planet's atmosphere saves us from many of them, but not all. The data showed that an airburst of that scale could easily happen again, anywhere, at any time. The mystery that had baffled the world for more than a century was finally solved, not by men in the field, but by machines that could see the patterns hidden within chaos. The truth was both comforting and terrifying. We now understood what happened, but also how close we had come to destruction. For over 100 years, Tunguska had been a riddle written in fire across the sky. Artificial intelligence finally read it. And what it told us was simple and frightening. The Earth is not alone, and the next Tunguska might not be so merciful. Do you believe artificial intelligence truly solved the Tunguska mystery, or is there still something it hasn't uncovered? Share your thoughts in the comments below.